Okay, so I've blued this. I found the corners, or I use the corners to index the center. Now I have a center mark. I've center punched it, right? So now this is going to be my start point for a bunch of steps coming up. So I'm going to work out of the center. So the first thing I want to do is I want to cut the hole, or lay out the hole to fit against, so this plate sits against this surface, not this surface. So this boss here is, the real size is 1.927 or something, but I've learned from building things that you don't want to make things necessarily too tight. So I'm going to give this a little bit of space. I'm going to make it 1.95. Right, so that gives a little bit of movement to move around. It absorbs the fact that, my machining and my stuff isn't perfectly accurate, which is fine as long as you build in for it. So I'm going to go 1.95. So we're going to take 1.95 divided by 2, 0.975. So we want the radius from this hole to be 0.975. So we can use our calipers, 0.975. Okay, and now we can lock it. So now we can use these as a scribe. I found that the small tips fit in better than the big ones. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a mark. I just want that. There's the edge of that hole. Because what I'd like to do, I don't like scribing with these things. I want the tips to stay sharp on them. I don't want to dull them off. So now that I've got a mark there, what I'm going to do is set my calipers. See, calipers don't give you a number. They just transfer it, right? So there's, as I go over that it scored over there line. So I'm just going to use the calipers. Drop them on the ground and use the calipers to finish making this. Now I'm not machining to this mark necessarily. I just want to know where the mark is, where this is going to be. So as I'm laying it out, I don't lose track of any of the sizes. Okay, so there's that first boss into there. Now what I need to do is I need to know what the bolt circle is for these holes, and the bolt circle being, if you could draw a line, a circle through all of these, what diameter would that circle be? So I'm going to take the calipers again, and this method of doing it isn't super accurate, but it could probably get it close enough. So from the outside of this hole to the outside of this hole, it's hard to get exactly. It's hard to find the exact centers. We want the bolt circle is actually on the center, but if we go from edge to edge, it's the same thing, and that gives us 2.82. Has a diameter, which 2.82. That doesn't. I don't know if that's any fractions, but what I have noticed is these holes are on a exactly 2-inch square. Right? If you go around, but I can't lay. It's hard to lay this out. I have to lay it out on the bolt circle. I can use this to verify. When I'm done, I'll verify that these things are all 2 inches, which is a kind of a good way to, if you're going to cut a few corners or take a few shortcuts, then it's good to know how you can verify that those shortcuts didn't cause you trouble. Again, so if I go from outside to outside, 2.82. So we're going to go with that. So 2.82 divided by 2 is 1.41. So we'll set this for 1.41. We'll lock it. We'll do the same thing. We'll come down here. We'll put a mark here. I'll finish the circle with the dividers. Okay. Now we know that the bolts are on that, the holes for the bolts are drilled on that circle. We have to lay out where they are. Because we found out that this is a square, then we can draw a square in here, and those points end up being 2 apart. But the problem is now we have to decide what angle we're going to drill it on. Like we have to make sure that that the holes, the first set of holes are square to this side, because we want the motor to sit square in the machine. And I want these edges to sit square in the machine. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of figuring out as to where that, I know what we can do. This ruler is 1 inch wide. Let's get a good, so 1.05 wide, pretty close to an inch. Because I want this square to this, I want the first two holes square to this. If I run a square, the back of the square through the center of the circle, these first two marks should be the first two holes. And how can we verify that? Well, we know that these holes are going to be 2 inches apart, right? They're on a 2 inch square. So if I set this for 2 inches, I can measure from where that one touches to where that one touches, and see, I'm out. I've made a mistake here. So before I do this, I need to figure out what my mistake is. So I'm going to do a bit of thinking on this, and I'll be back.